We are in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. We left off around verse 14 or so. It's 2 weeks ago. Appreciate Billy for taking the class for me last week as we got stuck in Atlanta. Missed our connection last Saturday evening. Got stuck in the Atlanta airport all night. But we made it back eventually. Appreciate Billy for taking the class in my absence last week. Left off about verse 14 last time. You remember what's been happening in the chapter previous to where we left off. Paul had been continuing to defend himself, defend his apostleship, defend the teachings that he had given while he had been there against the accusations that were brought up against him. He had suffered many things and endured many things in his work for the Lord. And he even brought up something that we don't specifically know what it was. He calls it his thorn in the flesh. And he prayed for it multiple times, that it would be removed from him. But did the Lord remove that from him? No, He didn't. He said, "My grace is sufficient for thee." In other words, I'm not taking it away from you, not taking this thorn away from you. My grace is sufficient for you. Apparently, whatever that thorn was, it was meant perhaps for evil against Paul because it was a messenger of Satan, but it also served in some way to keep Paul humble. And so that maybe that can help us put things in perspective a little bit in our lives as well. In verses 11 through 13, just by our way of recap real quick, Paul did not want to give the impression that he was lifting himself up, to boasting himself. He was compelled to do that because apparently that's the way the false teachers had gotten into Corinth and gotten an audience there, lifting themselves up. Paul said this was foolish for him to have to do this, but it was necessary for him to do that. And he even mentions, which I think should strike the Corinthians, he mentions in verse 11, I believe it was, he says, "For I ought to have been commended of you." In other words, they should have been defending Paul. Whenever the accusers came in stating false things against Paul, that the Corinthian brethren who knew Paul had witnessed his apostleship and the proof, the miracles and so forth, they should have been defending Paul. And I should have been commended of you. But now he's having to defend himself toward them. And as he mentions, he had left with them and given the signs of his apostleship. He'd proven it over and over again. And maybe a bit of tongue-in-cheek there. He says, I was not burdensome to you. I didn't take any support from you. Forgive me this wrong. Perhaps that's part of the reason the accusations were being made against him. And he'll touch on that a little bit as well as we continue on. But as we left off talking about in verse 14, "Behold, the third time I'm ready to come to you." And we mentioned that as of yet, we only have record of one visit to Corinth from Paul. Now he'll make another. We know he'll go there again. We have record of a second visit there, but he hasn't gone yet in the record that we have. So that leaves the question: had Paul made another visit to Corinth prior to this? Because behold, the third time I'm ready to come to you. But we don't, as the record we have only shows he's been there once. Had he made another visit that's not recorded, or is it that? Notice the terminology, behold, I'm ready. A third time I'm ready to come. Maybe it's possible that he had been ready to come but hadn't made that visit. I don't know the answer to the question. But he's planning to visit them again. And that's part of the accusation against Paul too. You say you're coming, but you haven't come. You haven't come back. But he's planning to be with them again. And notice the terminology that he uses here at the end of verse 4. Let's just read all of verse 14, and we'll go from there. Behold, the third time I'm ready to come to you, and I will not be burdensome to you, for I seek not yours, but you. For the children ought not lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. Paul was not trying to take advantage of them. I'm not going to be, when I come again, I'm not going to be burdensome to you. I'm still not going to take support. I don't want to be any kind of burden on you. And he says, I seek not yours, but you. I'm not coming to acquire what you have. As we mentioned before, Corinth was well known for being a prosperous place. But he said, I'm not coming there to gain what you have. I'm coming for you. I want to help you spiritually. I want to save your souls. And he even uses this terminology, for the children ought not lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. He looks at them as his spiritual children. He cares about them in that way. And he even referred to them that way back in, let's go read it real quick, 1 Corinthians 4, verses 14 and 15. If you beat me there, go ahead and read it. 1 Corinthians 4, verses 14 and 15. All right, so another example of how he views them as his spiritual children, his beloved sons, and he'd begotten them in the gospel. He's their father in that sense. He had taught them the gospel, and they were in the church because of Paul, because of what he had done for them. And he cares about them, and he's seeing to their spiritual needs, and he's very concerned about their spiritual well-being. And he makes the comparison just as parents do for their own children. You know, when we got young children, we don't expect those young children to supply for the parents' needs, do we? It doesn't work that way. Those young children are completely dependent upon their parents to supply for their needs. And that's how Paul's looking at this situation. And there he's trying to help them grow up and be prepared for a spiritually mature life, but apparently they're not there yet. And go ahead. That's a great point as well. Sometimes our children do things that we don't approve of. And that hurts us, doesn't it? As parents, that hurts us. But do we stop loving them? As Brenda just said, we don't never stop loving them. What are the questions, comments? All right, let's read verses 15 through 18. And I will very gladly spend and be spent for you, though the more abundantly I love you, the less I be loved. But be it so, I did not burden you. Nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you with guile. Did I make gain of you by any of them whom I sent unto you? I desired Titus, and with him I sent a brother. Did Titus make a gain of you? Walked we not in the same spirit? Walked we not in the same steps? Or pause there. I will very gladly spend and be spent. See, he's not looking to make a gain from them, as he just said. But he's willing to spend or literally exhaust everything for them. Financially, certainly, because he says, I'm not taking support from you. He's working to provide for himself while he's there. Even though as he described in the previous letter, specifically 1 Corinthians 9, he had every right to take support. As a teacher of the gospel, he had every right to take support. But he's not doing it, at least from the Corinthians. He's willing to spend and be spent financially, but not only that, how about his energy and his time that he's putting in. He's willing to spend and be spent for them. And not only willing, what does he say? Very gladly. What great love for them. As we just said, they're his children in the faith. And he's willing, and not only willing, but very gladly, he's going to do whatever he can to spend and be spent for their benefit. But notice what he says at the second half of that verse. Though the more abundantly I love you, the less I be loved. That hurts right there. Have you ever shown love to someone and not withheld it in any way, just shown, and only to have a person's back turned on you? That's what Paul's feeling right here. Love, when it's shown in a genuine way, love should kindle love in return. But even when it's not returned, we still love. And that's what Paul's doing here. His love for them should have been returned back to him. And gladly, as they recognize what Paul had done for them. But that's not what's happening. But still, Paul is showing his tremendous love for them. Questions, comments? Mm. Absolutely right. This love that Paul is showing Corinth is the same type of love that God has with us. Because we fail God. Every time we sin, we fail God, but He's willing to take us back. And He wants to, and not only willing, but desiring. Notice verse 16. But be it so, I did not burden you. And again, I didn't take support from you. But he's being accused based on that, and that's what his next statement is about. Being crafty, I caught you with guile. Now, that may seem a little bit confused. How was Paul being crafty and taking them with guile? Remember, these are accusations being made against him. Part of the accusation, he's not taking any money from you. He must be up to something. That's the idea. Paul was not being deceitful. Nor were those he sent, which he'll touch on in just a second. He's not trying to take advantage of them. He's trying to save them. What he's doing is for their own benefit. It's not for Paul's benefit. His going and being with the brethren in Corinth and establishing, planting that congregation there, that wasn't for Paul's benefit. It was for their benefit. And he's not taking anything from them. But that's not the way the world thinks. The world thinks, okay, if there must be something in it for Paul somewhere. He's up to something. Must be something in it for Paul. And so he's being accused. He's not taking support. He's being deceitful in some way. But that's the opposite of what was happening. These are the accusations being made against him. Being crafty. I caught you with guile. That's the accusation. Did I make a gain of you by any of them whom I sent to you? See, I didn't make a gain of you. I didn't try to take advantage of you. Did anybody that I sent to you, did they try to take advantage? And he specifically mentions Titus. Well, Titus went there in the same spirit of Paul. He didn't practice anything different in his teachings and his methods or in taking their support, evidently. I desired Titus, and with him I sent a brother. Don't know who that was. Did Titus make a gain of you? Walked we not in the same spirit? Walked we not in the same steps? He went there just like I did, with the same mindset, with the same purpose, in the same manner. We're not trying to take advantage of you. Yes, ma'am. Right. But we don't know the details of who that group was. Is it? But he specifically mentions Titus and someone who was with him. But they went there in the same manner in which Paul went. There was no deception taking place, but Paul was being accused of this. Questions, comments? In the last few verses here, we have some very strong admonitions to make changes and to make things right before Paul got back there. Some changes needed to be made. Let's read verses 19 to 21. Again, think ye that we excuse ourselves unto you? We speak before God in Christ, but we do all things, dearly beloved, for your edifying. For I fear, lest when I come, I shall not find you such as I would, and that I shall be found unto you such as you would not. Lest there be debates, envyings, wraths, strifes, backbitings, whisperings, swellings, tumults. And lest, when I come again, my God may humble me among you, and that I shall bewail many things which have sinned, which I, back up. Let me start over again at verse 21. And lest when I come again, my God will humble me among you, and that I shall bewail many which have sinned already, and have not repented of the uncleanness and fornication and lasciviousness which they have committed. That question, to start verse 19, again, think ye that we excuse ourselves unto you. What does he mean by excuse ourselves? Okay, in a sense, but and that's the reason it's not fully the way we use the term. The idea is, you think I'm just defending myself to defend myself? You think I'm defending myself just for me? Paul's point is that his purpose is not merely about, I need you to change the way you look at me. No, that's not his purpose. That's not his main goal. His main goal is not just to defend his own apostleship. He's defending God, absolutely. But also, what does he say there in verse 19? It's for your edifying. Yes, I'm defending myself. Yes, I'm defending my apostleship. Yes, I'm defending what I brought you and what I taught you and the things that we did and how we did it. But it's not just about me. This is for you. You need to change your perspective and understand what's happening here so you can be built up, edified. We do all things, dearly beloved, for your edifying. He's trying to reinforce their weakened faith. Build them, strengthen them, edify them. It's not just about Paul. Doesn't seem like Paul really, it's not going to hurt Paul if somebody views him the wrong way. That's not his main concern. His concern is for their spiritual well-being, their spiritual edification. Yep. You're exactly right. And if the church is being harmed, the church is being divided, well, what's another term for the church? It is the people, but they make up the body of Christ. Exactly. If the church is being harmed, it's the body of Christ. It's Christ and His work being harmed. And of course, that's exactly what Paul is working toward. It's not about him personally. It's about what he's trying to build and edify in them, the body of Christ. So he has to defend himself because it affects the church and therefore Christ. He's edifying them because he says, "For I fear, I have great concern that when I come, what am I going to find?" And he lists sins. I'm concerned, I'm afraid that when I do come back, I'm going to find things in a way that I don't want to find them, in ways that they ought not be. And he starts listing. King James says debates, or the idea is you contending with one another. Strife among brethren. We just touched on that a little bit. Then he says envyings or jealousies. Did brethren ever get jealous or envy of each other? All right. Major concern that Paul had. Wraths. Outbursts of wrath. Your temper overflowing. Is it a sin to be angry? No. Even God gets angry, doesn't He? But it can become a sin if we don't handle it the right way. Strifes. Now, some of these words overlap with each other, don't they? You find that a lot of times when there's a list of problems, a list of sins, or even a list of good quality, good godly characteristics. Sometimes they overlap with each other. And that's the case again here. Strifes. It's interesting. Some translations actually have selfish ambitions there at strifes. And you think about why, a lot of times, why is there strife? Because of selfish ambition, right? Because we hold our own opinions up and we lift ourselves up above what we think somebody else, their opinion or what we think of them. And there's strife now because of selfish ambition. Rivalries, that's another way to put it. Backbitings, what is that? Yeah. These next two kind of really go hand in hand, don't they? It says backbitings and whisperings. Those two things are very much linked together. But the idea is they're speaking evil, backbiting, speaking evil of one another. And whisperings, that speaking evil is tied directly into that evil whisperings, slanderings, gossip would fall right in there with it. Brethren, got to be careful about these things. Now, this next word I found really interesting. Swellings. You know what it literally means? Conceit. But King James has swellings. We sometimes we have that terminology. Well, it got a swollen head, right? What does that mean? Well, he's prideful, right? And that's the idea. That's what that word swellings means. Inflated with pride. And Paul's addressed this before. Thinking of oneself higher than we ought to. And it also connects back with the word strife there, which I mentioned earlier. Some translations have selfish ambition. Those things tie right together. Arrogance, exactly. And you know, whenever there's division, I won't say every time, but nearly every time something like this is tied into it, and some type of lifting up self with pride, thinking what I think is better than what you think, even when it's not a matter of doctrine. We're talking about what I think versus what you think, not what God has said. Causing division in the church. Then the last word he mentions there in this list in verse 20, tumults. What's a tumult? Now, you can't use the same word in the definition, Lee. Come on. Okay. Disorder, okay. Some type of chaos in that sense. Instability. And he's talking about this among brethren. Chaos, division, disorder in the church. You know what? And the world sees that, doesn't it? When there's disorder, there's chaos, there's division, there's strife, there's jealousy, lifting oneself above another. How are we going to bring others into the church with that going on? Yeah, you're not. Exactly. Nobody wants to be a part of that. And that's another reason why Paul was so concerned. His focus is on souls. His focus is on serving the Lord and bringing others to Him. How are we going to do that if we got strife and division and jealousy and pride in the church? You can't do it. Verse 20, and lest when I come again, my God will humble me among you. That's an interesting way to put that. God will humble me. How? How would God humble Paul among... Well, when Paul shows up and he sees the disgraceful state that the church in Corinth is in, after Paul had been there with them, taught them, brought them into the faith, planted that new congregation, and then bragged about them to other people. And now he comes back and he sees this state of the church there. He's going to be humbled. And then what will he do if he comes back and sees, and he's humbled and sees the state of the church like this? He says, I shall bewail. What does that mean? Deep sorrow. Absolutely. That word bewail carries intense emotion. Deeply grieved, yes. And not because of himself, because it's the state of the church and it affects Christ. And it affects souls. And that I shall bewail many which have sinned already and have not repented. That's the key there. He knows sin's going to happen. He knew they weren't going to be perfect. When he planted that congregation and he spent time with them and taught them, and then he left, he didn't expect everything to be just perfect. But they had gone into sin and they weren't repenting. They weren't willing to make a change to correct the wrong that had happened. The many which have sinned already and have not repented. Then he specifically, I don't guess so much specifically, but he gives us an idea of some of the things that they're not repented of, in addition to what he just listed. But the uncleanness, fornication, and lasciviousness, which they have committed. Many, he even says, had drifted into immoral, impure lifestyles. And Paul says this needs to be corrected before I come back. He doesn't want to have to show up at Corinth and see this state of the church and be just grieving while he's there. He wants to be there with them in joy. Correct the wrongs so that I don't have to grieve when I'm there. He doesn't want to have to come with that rod that he mentioned earlier. And we'll allude to that again as we go into the next chapter. What questions, comments about chapter 12? All right, let's read the first few verses of 2 Corinthians 13, final chapter here. This is the third time I'm coming to you. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. I told you before and foretell you as if I were present the second time, and being absent now, I write to them which heretofore have sinned, and to all other, that if I come again, I will not spare. Our pause there. Again, we have mention of this third time. And again, that leaves a question. Was there an unrecorded trip to Corinth, or, even though he doesn't use the term ready here in this one, is it that he was ready now a third time, even though he had only been there once previously? And I'm not 100% sure of the answer to that question. Anybody got any other insight on it? Thoughts you want to share about it? Yeah. Yeah, and this is we know that because he specifically mentioned the letters. Even though we only have 2, we know he had. I guess technically this is 3 Corinthians, but we only have 2 of them, 2 of his letters, or through representatives perhaps. So there's multiple possibilities of what Paul's talking about here. I just don't know with certainty what the answer is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's true. Third time addressing them, perhaps. And then he makes this statement. This is the third time I'm coming to you. Then he says, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. Now, he's quoting there, or referencing. What's he referencing? The Old Testament, a principle of the Old Testament. Somebody read for us real quick, Deuteronomy 19, verse 15. Deuteronomy 19, verse 15.
One witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity, or for any sin. If any sin that he sinneth at the mouth of 2 witnesses, or at the mouth of 3 witnesses, shall the matter be established.
Thank you, sir. So Paul is making a legal statement here. Basically, when I come, it's not going to be just me bringing these accusations or understanding the sins that you've gone into. It's not going to be just me. We're making a legal statement here. And I get the impression that these sins that some of the brethren in Corinth were involved in, they were pretty well known, and there wasn't going to be any issue finding witnesses. I get that impression. But Paul is making a legal statement here. And it's a warning as well. It's a legal statement and a warning. Paul's going to come, and he's going to address whatever problems need to be addressed concerning their sin and their impenitence. And this, from the previous verse, of course, chapter divisions are put there for our benefit, and but there is a link here between the previous verse, even though it's in the previous chapter. You know, he mentioned about how they had not repented. And Paul's going to come and address the problems there, but there's an implication. if they have repented of that, is it going to be brought up? No. There's not going to be, witnesses talking about a person's struggle and a person's sin that they have repented of and they corrected. That's not going to be brought up. Paul's talking about things that they are refusing to change. They're refusing to get out of their lives. I think that's important for us to remember as well. Paul's mourning over that's another point too. You connect it back to the previous verse. Christians, when we truly care about each other and our one another's spiritual well-being, we're going to mourn not only over our own sins, but over our brothers and sisters as well. We want them to correct the wrongs too. And especially those that we've taught personally, as Paul's dealing here with those in Corinth. That hurts him as a teacher and as a brother in Christ. But he's going to address the problems. He doesn't want to have to come there and grieve and come in there with a rod, so to speak. But he will if he has to. Going to verse 2 there in chapter 13. I told you before and foretell you as if I were present the second time, and being absent now, I write to you, write to them which heretofore have sinned, and to all other, that if I come again, I will not spare. We see that language again. I will not spare. If I come again to you and there's still problems, there's still sin, you haven't repented of it, I will not spare. You go all the way back to 1 Corinthians chapter 4, 21. I'm not going to spare the rod. I'm going to come there with a rod, indicating some discipline, some corrective action. Somebody get 2 Corinthians 1:23 for us. Very similar type of language. '21. Is that 2 Corinthians 1? All right. And what verse did I say, by the way? 23. Okay. 1:23. 2 Corinthians 1:23.
I call God as my witness, and I stake my life on it, that it was in order to spare you that I did not return.
So there you see that language again. I did not spare in order to spare you. But now he says, when I come back, if you're still in sin, I'm not going to spare. I'm not going to spare the rod. I'm going to come in there with disciplinary action to try and correct the wrong, just like a parent with a child. Now, go ahead.
The apostles also had in their power and special authority. Think back to Acts chapter 5 with Ananias and Sapphira, and then also Paul striking the one blind who was intervening and obstructing his version of one.
Absolutely, they had some discipline power, is the point being made there. Good point. All right, Lord willing, we'll pick up there next time.